Revealed, 3 miraculous days after death, Jesus confronts the one sin leading souls to hell in the quaint village of St. Benedict's Hollow. News of Samuel's tragic overdose spread like wildfire. His mother, Elizabeth, had been the heart of the community, a devoted soul tirelessly tending to her family and her faith. However, the darkness of addiction wrapped around her son like a relentless storm. The villagers gathered daily in prayer vigils, their voices a collective plea for divine intervention, calling upon their beloved patron saint, Saint Benedict, to save Samuel's lost spirit. But then, tragedy struck. Samuel was gone. Just as suddenly as he had slipped into despair, he stepped into eternity. Elizabeth felt the weight of grief clinging to her, heavier than an anchor dragging her down. She wandered back to the little chapel on the edge of the village, seeking solace in its shadowed embrace. The flickering candles danced alongside whispered prayers, their warm light a stark contrast to the cold weight in her heart. On the 3rd day following Samuel's death, Elizabeth knelt, her breaths shallow as tears cascaded down her cheeks. The air shimmered around her, thick with an otherworldly presence that enveloped her like a comforting blanket. Suddenly, the chapel felt alive, each stone echoing the ancient hymns, each beam of wood trembling under the weight of unspoken words. Then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. A radiant light burst forth from the altar, illuminating the entire chapel in a glorious glow. Jesus stood before her, his eyes filled with compassion, his arms open wide. "Why do you fear?" he asked, his voice echoing in her soul. "Your son is not lost, he is found." Elizabeth's heart raced, the air buzzed with divine energy. Her grief began to shimmer with hope. "Mother," he continued, "it is disbelief that stands as the greatest barrier, the sin that keeps souls from heaven. I see your sorrow, but I also see the depths of your faith." Each word sent ripples of warmth through her being. A flicker of doubt, buried deep inside her heart, clawed to the surface. Was her faith strong enough to bridge the unfathomable chasm of loss? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Elizabeth, now emboldened, sat frozen in awe. The warmth of Jesus' presence enveloped her, igniting a flickering flame of hope. She was reminded that even in her darkest hour, divine love waited patiently to illuminate her path. Suddenly, the chapel doors burst open as the villagers gathered, drawn by an unseen force. Their murmurs filled the air like a soft hymn. "Did you feel that? The air is alive." As they stepped inside, the radiant glow dimmed but did not extinguish. Elizabeth shared her vision, her heart pounding with urgency for them to understand the depths of her revelation. In that moment, their pain aligned, the village felt an unseen current of renewed faith sweep through them. They began to pray together, voices rising in unison, pleading for understanding amid grief. Yet the lingering question remained: could they truly embrace Jesus' message about disbelief? As they united together, Elizabeth held her breath, unsure of what the future would hold. The church bells chimed. What truth would be revealed in the face of overwhelming despair? What would they uncover as they ventured deeper into the light? The chapel was alive with a hum of excitement. The villagers gathered close, their faces reflecting a blend of wonder and apprehension. They formed an unsteady circle around Elizabeth, whose heart beat with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. She raised her hands, trembling slightly, still feeling the warmth of Jesus' presence surround her. "What do we do now?" a voice broke through the crowd. Martha, a longtime friend, and fellow believer, her eyes glimmering with newfound hope. The others turned to Elizabeth, waiting for her to guide them through this moment of revelation. "Jesus has spoken to me," Elizabeth whispered, her voice steadying as she found the strength of her faith. "He told me that disbelief is the greatest sin, pulling souls away from his light, that we must embrace our faith with open hearts." The murmurs rose like a gentle breeze, weaving through the chapel as if the walls themselves were encouraging the gathering. Another voice chimed in, filled with doubt, but how do we know this is real? How do we trust what we cannot see? It was John, a devout man grappling with personal struggles. What if this is just our grief trying to find comfort? John, it's in our doubt that we often miss the truth, Elizabeth replied, her eyes gently meeting his. Even a flicker of faith can pierce through the darkest doubts. We must hold on to that flicker. The villagers nodded, recalling times when their faith had shone in adversity. They reflected on their struggles, how moments of despair had often given birth to a deeper trust in God. Elizabeth continued, her spirit rising, let us pray together, not just for Samuel, but for all of us. Let us ask for clarity, for strength, and for the light to guide us through our disbelief. As they united in prayer, a hush fell over the chapel. The flickering candlelight seemed to dance in rhythm with their voices, rising higher as if carried by the very angels. In that sacred moment, Elizabeth felt that the barrier of grief was being lifted, and she could almost sense Samuel's spirit with them filled with peace, freed from his earthly struggles. Then, a gentle breeze whispered through the chapel, stirring the air as a sweet fragrance, like blooming flowers after the rain. It brought with it a sense of calm, reassurance that they were not alone in their journey. Elizabeth could feel the presence of the divine, as if the heavens themselves were embracing their hearts. Believe, she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. Believe that we are loved, that our faith can heal our brokenness. As they opened their eyes, a collective realization settled among them. Disbelief was not merely a thought but a spiritual weight to be cast aside. United as one body, they lifted their voices anew, singing a hymn of hope that echoed through the chapel and into the village beyond, but just as they poured their hearts into the melody, a significant tremor shook the ground beneath them, causing the candles to sway violently. Elizabeth gasped at the sudden turn of events. Were they about to face yet another trial? The church bells rang out loudly, sending a sense of urgency rushing into every heart. What had God planned next for them? Would their deepening faith withstand the shaking of their very foundation? How would they respond when faced with the unexpected? The mystery of the moment locked tightly around them, echoing the uncertain path ahead. The trembling beneath their feet seemed to awaken a deeper courage within them. Elizabeth looked around, seeing the fear on some faces but also a spark of determination glimmering in others. It was a moment of choice. Would they succumb to fear or rise together in faith? Stay together, she cried, her voice cutting through the rising panic. This is a test. We must hold firm. With that, the villagers began to gather closer, forming a tighter circle, their hands clasped together. Elizabeth felt the warmth of their connection, the strength of their shared faith, much like the early disciples who once stood together in fear yet transformed into bold evangelists. As the tremor subsided, a profound stillness settled over the chapel, as if time itself had paused to listen. Elizabeth closed her eyes and drew a deep breath, focusing on God's promises. Let us keep praying, she urged gently. Let our hearts echo His love and strength. Though the ground beneath them had shaken, they felt an unexplainable lightness within their spirits. The air filled again with that sweet fragrance, growing stronger, wrapping around them like a protective embrace. They resumed their prayers, voices rising in harmony, each note carrying their hopes upward, mingling with the very breath of heaven. Suddenly, a soft, shining light flickered within the chapel, emerging from the altar. It danced and swayed as if alive, illuminating the faces turned upward in wonder. Ominous fear began to dissipate like mist in the morning sun. With hearts racing, they watched as the light transformed, morphing into distinct shapes, glorious figures, seemingly angels, descending amidst their prayers. Fear not, for your prayers have reached the Father. One angelic figure declared, shimmering with divine power. He is here among you. The villagers fell silent, awestruck, hearts pounding in reverence. The angel continued, He hears your cries and sees your struggles. Yet, remember, the road to His love must be paved through faith and grace. Doubt is your enemy, for it clouds your vision of His glory. John, pushing through his past fears, spoke up, how do we banish disbelief? How do we truly trust what our eyes cannot see? The angel turned its gaze, brilliant eyes searching the depths of John's heart. Believe, dear one. It is your choice to step into the light. Seek the treasures of the heart that surpass worldly understanding. Only then can you walk boldly into his embrace. With those words, the angel raised its hands toward the villagers. Bright light poured from them, bathing Elizabeth and her friends in warmth. It felt as if the very essence of love wrapped around them, empowering their hearts and igniting their faith anew. Let not this moment fade. Elizabeth exclaimed, spirit revived. Let us walk forward, breaking the chains of doubt. As they stood together, a new song rose within them, a song of freedom and renewal that filled the very air of the chapel, but as they sang, a powerful rumble echoed in the distance, shaking the rafters above them once again. The angelic light flickered but did not fade. Elizabeth's heart quickened, an undeniable truth gripped her. Something significant was unfolding. Could it be that God had greater plans in store for them than they could fathom? Gather your strength, the angel said calmly. For the coming days will challenge your faith further. Prepare yourselves. Tension and exhilaration swirled in the air. What would this next trial bring? Would they rise as a united body or scatter in fear? The divine mystery of their journey unfolded before them like an uncharted path, illuminated yet uncertain. They stood, breathless and expectant, poised on the precipice of the unknown. What extraordinary revelations lay ahead? As the last echoes of their song faded, an almost palpable stillness returned to the chapel. Elizabeth's heart beat steadily now, emboldened by the angel's presence but weighed down by an unshakable anticipation. She felt the warmth still enveloping her and the villagers. It was as if the very air vibrated with potential, alive with divine promise. Then, the angel spoke once more, its voice like a gentle breeze brushing past newly blossomed flowers. In the days to come, you will face trials that will test your faith as never before. Each challenge will forge your spirits, strengthening you for a purpose far beyond what you can envision. In that moment, Elizabeth exchanged glances with John and the others. They looked resolute but somehow unsettled, each of them pondering the angel's words. The room, though rich with light, felt heavy with expectation. Prepare, the angel urged, your hearts must be open to the movements of the Spirit. Pray, for within your prayers lies the power to change fate. Know that vulnerability may lead to victory. As the angel's words washed over them, they felt a profound stirring deep within, understanding that vulnerability was not weakness, but a portal to divine strength. They huddled closer, an unspoken pact solidifying among them. They would not waver. Just then, a sharp flicker of light drew their attention to the altar. Something new was happening. The air shimmered as a fabric of vibrant colors wove itself into existence. It twisted and flowed, forming an ornate tapestry that hung in the air, depicting scenes from their own lives, battles fought, prayers offered, moments of despair, and moments of joy. The villagers gasped in unison, their eyes wide with wonder. These are the records of your hearts, the angel explained, gesturing gracefully to the tapestry that seemed to pulse with life. Every prayer, every tear, every laugh, they hold significance. They are the bricks building your path toward grace. Elizabeth stepped forward, drawn to the images flowing within the tapestry. She could see the faces of those she had lost, yet each one radiated light as they looked back at her, filled with an abiding love. It filled her with a warmth that pushed away all lingering doubt. What about our sins? John asked, his brow furrowed. How do we cleanse ourselves? Repentance, dear one, came the angel's gentle response. Recognize your shortcomings without shame, for even in our brokenness, his mercy shines brightly. Embrace the transformative power of confession, it is a balm to the wounded soul. The profound weight of these words settled over them. Experience surged within their hearts, a righteous indignation against every sin that had ever strayed them from his love. Now, let us move to the outer world, the angel instructed, its eyes glowing with divine urgency. You will witness how the faint flickers of your faith can become beacons for others to see. Prepare for the challenges that will shape you, illuminating the darkness around you. Each step you take in his name will create waves of change. Together, they nodded, united by a promise far greater than themselves. As the angel's luminous form began to fade, its last words lingered in the air, "Trust in what you cannot see, for much is coming to light." Just as their spirits began to rise again, a loud crash resounded from outside the chapel, as if the earth itself were calling them to attention. Elizabeth's heart raced. The promise of challenges now felt imminent and tangible. What awaited them beyond those doors? Would they rise from each new trial, united in unwavering faith, or would the worries of the world pull them apart? The steadfast journey had only just begun, and the call to courage echoed louder than before. The tension was thick, the air crackled with expectation. And deep down, they all felt it a divine disturbance, an invitation to step boldly into their appointed destiny. What revelation would the outside world unveil? The echoes of the crash settled into an uneasy silence, leaving Elizabeth and the villagers staring toward the chapel's main doors. Each heartbeat seemed to synchronize, the air thick with a collective breath held in anticipation. John took a step forward, glancing back at the group. "We must not fear what is coming. We are armed with faith, and together we stand stronger." Elizabeth nodded, letting his words wash over her. "Yes, faith is our shield," she whispered, the softness of her voice trembling with hope. The others came closer, forming a circle, rallying around the undeniable strength of their shared belief. Taking a deep breath, Elizabeth finally placed her hand on the chapel doors. It felt warm, pulsing with life, as if it, too, recognized the calling beyond. With a gentle push, she opened the doors, revealing a world that teetered on the brink of chaos. The village square, normally a scene of peaceful daily life, was engulfed in disarray. People moved about in haste, voices mingling with fear, shadows rising from the corners of their hearts. Dark clouds swirled in the sky, threatening storms that mirrored the turmoil within the villagers. Elizabeth's spirit wavered for a brief moment, but the angel's words echoed in her mind, "Trust in what you cannot see." She straightened her shoulders, resolute in her purpose. "Remember, we are the light," she declared, the conviction in her voice igniting a flame among her companions. Together, they stepped out into the chaos, eyes darting to faces filled with worry and uncertainty. A woman near the fountain caught Elizabeth's gaze. Her expression was twisted with despair. "Please, help us," she cried, knee-deep in sorrow. "Our crops are failing, our homes are falling apart. We're losing hope." Elizabeth rushed toward her. "We are here," she said, her eyes locked onto the woman's. "We bring a message of hope." An idea sparked within her, inspired by their tapestry of memories. She gathered everyone around. "Let us share light today, for every prayer we've whispered will now shine through our hands." As they prayed, a transformation began. Warmth flooded the area, and the colors of their tapestry felt alive once more. With hands raised, they invoked blessings, the spirit flowing between them like a river of light, touching the hearts that had lost sight of grace. The villagers, hesitant at first, began to gather. "For every crop that fails, we will plant 10 seeds of faith," John proclaimed, his voice lifting above whispers. Soon, a supportive chorus began to echo among them, hearts igniting with newfound assurance. Suddenly, crackling energy surged. The dark clouds above began to part, revealing rays of brilliant sunlight spilling over the village. Gasps echoed in the crowd as the warmth of the sun washed over them. Laughter broke out amidst the tears, the cries of desperation silenced momentarily by the divine grace flooding their hearts. Yet, just as hope began to blossom, a distant scream shattered the moment, a piercing cry that struck deeper than fear. "Help! They're coming!" A young man stumbled into their circle, terror etched across his face. "The shadows in the woods, they seek to bring darkness upon us." A heavy silence fell again as the reality of their circumstances hit hard. The beacon of light they had summoned faced a looming shadow. Elizabeth's heart raced as she felt the palpable evil threatening to consume them. "This is our next trial," she whispered, the weight of her words resting heavily in the atmosphere. The villagers looked at one another, uncertainty clouding their resolve. Would they stand united against this darkness? Could they maintain the light they had managed to inspire? Elizabeth nodded, her faith firm. We must confront it. Together, we can rise above the darkness. As they prepared for what lay ahead, a flicker of hope clung to the corners of every heart. They felt strength waiting in the shadows, urging them to embrace faith in the face of fear. But what would they discover as they journeyed into the depths of the unknown? What darkness awaited beyond the trees, and would their light be enough to drive it away? The young man's words hung in the air, heavy with dread. The shadows, they were real and had crossed into their world. Elizabeth felt a chill running down her spine, yet deep within, her spirit ignited with a fervent resolve. Gather close, she said, her voice steady and clear. The villagers formed a tighter circle, each face reflecting a blend of fear and determination. We have faced trials before. This fear is but a shadow of what we can overcome together. Remember the warmth that filled this square just moments ago. That warmth is our faith, and it drives away darkness. With a semblance of courage, John stepped forward. We must prepare, he urged. The shadows thrive on fear, but we carry the light of hope. We need to fortify our hearts and stand as one. As they exchanged resolute nods, Elizabeth's heart brimmed with prayers. They were about to confront something beyond their understanding, yet faith summoned the strength to persevere. Let us light candles, she suggested, her voice rising above the rumble of uncertainty. Each flame we kindle represents our faith, our resolve against this darkness. With that, they fetched candles from the chapel, one by one. As they lit them, small flames flickered into existence, illuminating the shadows that began to creep closer. Each candle was a testament to their resilience and unity. Every flicker counts, John reminded them, holding his candle high. We may feel surrounded, but together our light grows brighter. The villagers began to chant softly, the words flowing from their lips like a gentle river. Faith is our shield, hope is our anchor. They repeated it, voices rising and harmonizing into a powerful melody that intertwined with their shared heartbeat. Suddenly, the young man who had alerted them glimpsed movement further in the woods. They are coming, he exclaimed, dread returning to his voice. Stay together, Elizabeth commanded, raising her candle high, its light piercing the gloom. She could sense terror lurking in the edges of the gathering, but as each villager lit their candle, the trembling voices transformed into shouts of faith. Just as the shadows pressed nearer, Elizabeth felt a surge of divine strength within her. Look! She cried, pointing toward the edge of the clearing. The light from their candles began to shine outward, forming a protective barrier that resisted the encroaching darkness. A low, sinister whisper echoed from the woods, as shadowy figures clawed at the air. You cannot stand against us, your faith means nothing. But the villagers clung to their flames, their ancient songs rising to drown out the desolation. Elizabeth felt an unshakable warmth envelop her, reminding her that divine presence lingered among them. You are not alone, she whispered to herself, feeling the embrace of something far greater. The darkness recoiled momentarily, sensing the unwavering resolve of the villagers' hearts. The shadows danced erratically, a chaotic mass yearning to overwhelm, yet vanishing into the light. Elizabeth's spirit soared. She could feel the tide shifting, yet she knew the battle was far from over. Together, we are light, they shouted, hands grasping their candles steadfastly. The once oppressive presence began to wane. With every heartbeat, Elizabeth grew bolder. We must advance. We cannot let fear guide our feet. As they stepped forward together, a question broke through the sound of their resolve. What would happen when they faced the heart of the darkness? Would their united faith be enough to drive back the shadows once and for all? The woods waited, shrouded in uncertainty, as the villagers clutched their light. They marched onward, illuminated by hope, to confront an unknown that may either condemn them or release a blessing. And within that weighty mystery lay the very essence of their struggle. The air thickened as the villagers edged closer to the woods, their hearts a mixture of determination and trepidation. With candles held high, they stepped beyond the safety of the clearing, the light spilling into the blackness like a warm embrace pushing against the frigid grip of despair. Fear not, Elizabeth called out, her voice ringing clear. For even in the darkest of nights, our faith will light the way. With each step, she sensed a crackle of energy, as though their combined hope was manifesting physically, brushing against the oppressive darkness. The shadows wailed as if sensing the threat of their united faith, the chilling sound sending shivers down spines yet igniting the fire in their hearts. John, emboldened by the rising spirits around him, began to sing, a melody that pierced through the terrifying silence. Oh, let our light shine bright, let it beacon through the night. For we are united, and our hearts are ignited. The villagers joined in, their voices rising in crescendos of praise. The song became a shield, clashing against the whispers lurking at the edge of the darkness, each note stitching together their spirits, binding them in unshakable conviction. As they ventured deeper, the trees swallowed them whole, their mighty trunks twisted into grotesque shapes that strained against the light. Shadows flickered like restless spirits, darting in and out, yet with every attempt to encroach, the villagers stood resolute. With every step, we reclaim our land. Elizabeth proclaimed, raising her flame higher. We belong to the light. The woods seemed to breathe, a low rumble vibrating in the roots beneath them, the earth trembling beneath their resolve. But just beyond the veil of trees, a darkness thickened, pooling like a tangible fog. The whispers grew louder, filling their minds with doubt, you are nothing. This light is but a flicker it cannot hold against us. In that moment of strain, Elizabeth felt a wave of fear wash over her, threatening to extinguish her flame. Lord, grant me strength. She murmured, her hands trembling as she held the candle. But as if in response, an overwhelming surge of warmth enveloped her, a reminder of the profound love that cradled her spirit, igniting new energy. Together. She shouted again, turning to the villagers with a fierce determination. Together, we are stronger than any shadow. Hold your candles high. And so they did. The flickering flames stirred with renewed vigor, pushing back against the terrifying depths of the night. Each villager became a beacon, their lights flickering like stars against an infinite sky, illuminating paths that had long been eclipsed. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward with renewed fury, coiling like black smoke, threatening to snuff out their flame. Elizabeth's heart raced as a figure emerged from the mass, darker than the night itself, eyes glinting with malice. You cannot withstand me, it sneered, a voice slipping like ice through the gathered warmth. I am the fear that grips and shatters. You will falter and fade. Elizabeth stepped forward, fueled by a force greater than her own, remembering the promise that faith would always conquer doubt. We stand not against this darkness alone, but with the light of hope, with love surrounding us. She raised her candle higher still, the flames shimmering defiantly against the approaching abyss. What will you choose now, shadow? She challenged. Will you cower and fade, or will you flee before the truth of our love? The villagers echoed her words, their voices rising in triumphant harmony. The darkness hesitated, flickering as if caught between fear and fury. What would become of this confrontation? Would love and faith be enough to push back the darkness? A tense moment hung in the air, raw and electric, as they stood on the brink of revelation. The tension wrapped around them like a dark cloak, pressing in, threatening to swallow them whole. Elizabeth held her breath, heart pounding, as every villager stood resolute beside her, their faith interwoven in that sacred moment. It was then that the shadow's form began to change, distorting, as if molded by the very words of their faith. Look at them, clinging to their flickering hopes. The darkness hissed, its voice rising, an anger barely contained. Their light is but an illusion, a mere distraction from the truth. You have no power over me. The villagers pressed closer together, igniting an even brighter flame of courage. The rhythmic chants of John, still buoyant, echoed in harmony. Fear not the darkness, for we are united, we will fight for our lives. Elizabeth shut her eyes for a moment, feeling the warm energy radiating around them. It surged through her, nourishing her spirit. We are the light. In love, we find strength. She proclaimed, finding her voice even bolder than before. Suddenly, a shaft of pure white light pierced through the canopy above them, cutting through the shadows like a divine sword. The light shattered the darkness, revealing not only the figure before them but the vastness of what had once been hidden. The villagers lifted their candles higher, brimming with renewed purpose. Their faces were aglow, emboldened by the purity of faith. The figure recoiled, unable to withstand the onslaught of brightness that filled the air. "No, this cannot be. You are weak." It spat, the shadows writhing as if in excruciating pain. "Your grip on fear is broken." Elizabeth spoke firmly, her voice steady. "We reject your hold. We claim our home back through the power of love." As if prompted by her declaration, the remaining villagers echoed her words, amplifying their declarations of faith. Each voice melded into a force of nature, sweeping through the woods like a soft yet relentless wind. "Love breaks chains. We are warriors of the light." The darkness flickered still but now showed signs of retreat. The thick fog that had once enveloped their minds began to lift. Elizabeth felt the warmth spread within her, connecting each villager in a golden thread of divine determination. A new thought pierced through her, sparking realization: we are never alone. Even when we face our greatest fears, the light of faith surrounds us. And love is always stronger. As these words filled the air, a new energy pulsed through their gathering. The leaden burden of fear began to dissolve, revealing something extraordinary within them, a collective strength unseen before. The dark figure turned, its form staggering, caught off guard. "What is this power?" It screamed more in horror than anger. Elizabeth turned to her fellow villagers, her voice full of utmost assurance. "We are the embodiment of love. We will prevail." Suddenly, the entire clearing erupted with the brilliance of 1,000 lights as their individual candles merged into one radiant flame. Yes, they were simple villagers, but in this moment they embodied something sacred. As the shadows scattered and began to dissipate into the earth, the whispers faded to nothingness, and there emerged an eerie calm. The villagers felt the stillness settle around them, a hush that resonated with the aftermath of victory. But in that stillness, a question hung heavy in the air. What awaited them now? Had they merely pushed back the darkness, or was this the beginning of something far more significant? With deep breaths, they looked to the path ahead, untouched by fear, illuminated by unwavering faith. What remarkable truths might they uncover in this newfound light? And in this moment of collective understanding, they knew their journey was far from over. As the calm enveloped them, Elizabeth felt a gentle stirring in her heart, a whisper of something greater. The air shimmered with promise, thick with possibility. The flickering remains of their candles cast dancing shadows, no longer dark and foreboding, but vibrant, alive with hope. The villages held on to their breaths, an unhurried moment of reflection before the next step. "What do we do now?" someone asked, breaking the sacred stillness. The question hung in the air, ripe with uncertainty. Eyes flickered among the gathered, a mix of hope and trepidation. Elizabeth stepped forward, emboldened by the recent victory. "We have faced darkness and emerged with light. This is not just a win against fear but a summons to rise even higher. There is more for us to discover." A murmur followed her declaration. They had fought hard, yet the memory of that sinister whisper echoed still. Had their struggle truly ended? The truth of Elizabeth's words sunk in, blossoming into something tangible. They belonged not only to the light, but to each other, which now seemed to pulse through the air like a thrum of delightful energy. The elders exchanged glances, each recognizing the collective responsibility weighing down on their shoulders. "Let us seek guidance," one elder offered, his voice steady, instilling a newfound confidence. The group gathered in a circle, holding hands, like branches intertwined in a sturdy tree. Elizabeth's heart surged as she felt their unity wrap around her, a living testament to their shared purpose. She closed her eyes, inviting the light into the center of their circle. "Divine Spirit," she breathed softly, "we seek your wisdom. Illuminate our path and reveal what lies ahead. Strengthen our hearts to carry your love wherever we may go." As they breathed in rhythm together, the air thickened, vibrating to the cadence of their prayers. Suddenly, an ethereal mist filled the clearing. It swirled and coiled, dancing with flickers of divine light. The villagers gasped but stood firm, grounding themselves in the bond they had forged. "I feel it," someone exclaimed. "A presence, it's so warm, like a blanket of peace." Visions flashed before Elizabeth's inner eye, figures of light, shapes of triumph, faces of those who had come before. Her spirit soared, remembering the stories of resilience passed down through generations, woven together by faith. Woe to the lost! A whisper came, swimming up from the mist, "For you are not abandoned. For every heart in darkness, there is a flicker of hope." Elizabeth opened her eyes, gazing around at her fellow villagers who were moved to tears. "This is our mission," she announced, her voice swelling with newfound purpose. "We must carry this hope beyond our village, to those who still wander alone in shadows." Their hearts surged in unison, ignited by collective determination. "We will share our light, we will heal the broken, and we will guide the lost to find their way." They echoed, their voices building to a mighty wave of resolve, yet as the mist retreated, a different kind of silence began to spread. The villagers felt the weight of their new calling settle upon them, stirring questions neither dared to voice. What lay beyond the borders of their village? What trials awaited them outside this sacred place? A thought brushed across Elizabeth's mind, intertwining with her spirit. She realized their journey was more than simply a mission. They were stepping into the vastness of divine love, prepared to follow wherever it led them, fearless, unyielding, with hearts transformed and souls set ablaze. They turned to the path ahead, resolute in their commitment. The journey into the unknown beckoned, but they knew, they were guided by love. What were the challenges that lurked beyond their village? What magnificent light awaited to be discovered in the world beyond? As the villagers took their first steps beyond the borders of St. Benedict's Hollow, a triumphant energy coursed through them, igniting their hearts with purpose. They breathed in the crisp air, rich with the scent of new beginnings, and felt a surge from deep within, a divine call to carry their newfound light into darkness that still lingered beyond their village. Elizabeth led the way, an unwavering beacon for her fellow villagers. She turned to them, her voice filled with warmth. "We are not just leaving our home, we are taking our home, our faith, and our love with us. Together, we will be the hands and feet of grace." With each step, they shared stories, laughter, and the warmth of their collective faith. The journey was long, but the hearts that walked it together sang like a sweet melody, echoing the hymns that had once filled their chapel. They wove their path along the trails that twisted through fields and forests, each step a step deeper into purpose. As they ventured further, the landscape began to shift. Dark clouds merged menacingly on the horizon, obscuring the sun. Elizabeth's heart ached at the sight. "Dorothy, look," she pointed toward a struggling farmstead, positioned beneath the weight of despair. "We need to reach them." The villagers quickened their pace. When they arrived, they found a family huddled together, worry etched across their faces, hands deep in the earth that had given them so much in the past. Elizabeth approached, her heart stretched with compassion. "We come with a message of hope," she proclaimed, her voice resonating in the tense air. "You are not alone. Let us pray for your crops." With hands joined and their candles silently illuminating the shadows, they lifted their prayers high. Elizabeth felt the air crackle with divine promise. As their words poured forth, the dark clouds momentarily parted, revealing beams of sunlight cascading down on the struggling crops below. The family gasped, eyes widening as they felt a stir of life rising from the earth. "Please, continue," the father cried, hope dawning in his gaze. They prayed in unison, each voice rising to the heavens. Warmth spread through the gathered crowd, and as they finished, the first raindrops began to fall, gentle and nourishing, drumming against the earth a divine affirmation. This is just the beginning, Elizabeth understood, answering the growing strength in her heart. With renewed fervor, they traversed from farmstead to village square, to homes burdened, each place a precious opportunity to share their love and light. As night fell, a gathering took shape. People came drawn by the stories, the warmth they carried, the flickering lights of candles illuminating their faces. They sang songs of faith, their voices intertwining like an unbreakable rope, each note reinforcing their bonds, but darkness was still out there, lurking in the corners of human hearts. A woman stepped forward, her voice shaky. What will happen when those who fear us seek to resist? Elizabeth paused, sensing the swirling uncertainty among the gathered souls. Fear will come, but remember the power of love, Elizabeth spoke with confidence. Fear only holds strength when we allow it to define us. By loving harder, we become the light that drives out the shadows. An unsettling rustle disturbed the crowd as moments later, a figure emerged from the trees, a representation of all the doubts and struggles they had fought together. It stood tall, shrouded in dark smoke, challenging their resolve. A collective hush hung over the crowd, dread circulated like choking poison. This light is but a mere flicker, the figure taunted. No. Elizabeth stepped forward, candle raised. We are more than mere flickers, we are flames refused to be extinguished. Her voice echoed with clarity. With each word, she felt strength surging through her. The villagers rallied behind her, chanting, "Together, we shine brighter." Their candles glowed fiercely, illuminating the warmth of love they embodied. The thick shadow paused, and for a fleeting moment, uncertainty gripped its malevolent gaze. Your faith means nothing. It rebuffed weakly, yet the trembling of its voice was unmistakable. Love means everything. They shouted, and the figure wilted, its strength diminishing as if drawn away by an unseen current. As they advanced forward, light bursting forth, the shadow slithered back into the darkness, retreating from their united front. The villagers exhaled, hearts racing, realizing the immense power they wielded together, and so their journey continued, a crusade fueled by faith, boundless love, and a relentless commitment to illuminate darkness. They faced trials, moments that would test their spirit, but each obstacle only brought them closer together. As they ventured on, they discovered not only profound strength within themselves, but also the joy of supporting one another through storms, teaching those lost in shadow how beautiful the light could be. In the heart of each village they touched, conversations bloomed, souls ignited, allowing compassion and support to flourish. They held worship festivals, created community gardens, and prayed for healing. And with every flicker, they were reminded every act of love, every shared word, was a seed planted, growing into something holy and majestic. One day, gathered around a vibrant fire, Elizabeth gazed into the warm flicker, her heart overwhelmed with gratitude. Look at what we've created, together. Together. The villagers echoed, understanding the sacred bond carved from each experience shared, heartbreak and joy interwoven, like brilliant threads in a divine tapestry, and with a fervent heart, Elizabeth prayed, thanking God for every trial and every triumph, knowing that they were the light of the world, an unstoppable force of divine love. The journey was far from done, it had only just begun. Now is the moment for you to shine. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive faith stories that bring light to the darkness. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, so these powerful messages reach even more souls looking for hope. Comment your reactions and testimonies about how this story has impacted you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation of faith. Let's illuminate the world together.